As I grow older, I respect Chairman Mao Zedong more and more. Although I don't advocate personality worship now, I still think he is a high-quality idol that is rare in the ages. Because just looking at his great achievements, his life seems to be a mess, as if he has traveled back from the future to save all people from misery. If communism had not advocated atheism, if the party he founded had not advocated the elimination of superstition, he would have become a god long ago. But if we calm down and understand his experience, we will find that his life was not cheating. Compared with the social elites at that time, he had a very low starting point, started very late, was promoted slowly, and had a very bumpy experience. When he was a child, he had to work and sleep with the long-term workers. He went to Changsha for the first time to attend junior high school at the age of 18. He entered Hunan Fourth Normal University at the age of 20. At the age of 25, he became a librarian at Peking University on the recommendation of his teacher Yang Changxiu. Once, Hu Shi, the founder of Public Intellectuals, gave a speech in the library of Peking University. Mao Zedong asked him for advice in a thick Hunan accent. Hu Shi asked the person next to him, who is asking the question. When he learned that it was a clerk who was not registered, he refused to answer the question. The 11 representatives of the First Congress of the Communist Party of China, in addition to 2 foreigners, are all talented elites of the times. Mao Zedong's qualifications are considered mediocre. When the First Congress of the Communist Party of China was held, he could only sit aside and serve as a recorder. For example, Zhang Qiuhao was 4 years younger than Mao Zedong. He was admitted to Peking University at the age of 19. He also served as the president of the student union. He was proficient in English and familiar with Russian. When the first Congress was held, he was the host of the conference and talked eloquently on the stage. After the conference, he was elected as the organizational director. Lu Renjing, a representative of the first class, is a cheating genius. He was admitted to the high school affiliated to Fujian University of China at the age of 14 and the Department of Physics of Peking University at the age of 16. When he entered the first class, he was only 19 years old. Lu Renjing is proficient in English and Russian. He has read a large number of original works of Marx and Lenin. He can recite large sections of the original text. When he opens his mouth, he can say Marx, so he is called Little Marx. Therefore, Lu Renjing became Chen Duxiu's personal translator. Chen Duxiu would always take him with him when he went abroad for meetings, communist international meetings. Sometimes he even spoke on Chen Duxiu's behalf, and he even chatted and laughed with Lenin. During the first Congress of the Communist Party of China, he and Li Hanjun, another Marxist-Leninist theorist, argued about the party's program and policies. The two were at loggerheads and refused to give in to each other. What is even more astounding is that both of them were able to refute each other by quoting entire paragraphs from Marx's original works, including the contents of the Communist Manifesto at their fingertips. This Li Hanjun was so great that he was known as the Marxist fire maker. He went to Japan to study at the age of 12, 1902. At the age of 14, he was admitted to the Civil Engineering Department of Tokyo Imperial University in Japan and became an official funded foreign student of the Qing government. Not only did he have excellent grades in science, he also had a high level of language talent and was proficient in 4 languages, Japanese, German, French, and English. This gave him a great advantage in studying the original works of Marxism-Leninism. After returning to China in 1918, he began to translate and write Marxist-Leninist works. In 1920, he and Chen Duxiu launched the Marxist Research Society. In August, he, Chen Duxiu and other 7 people initiated the establishment of the Shanghai Communist Party, and he served as the acting secretary of Shanghai. Mao Zedong first came into contact with Das Kapital in 1920. When he was running the Changsha Cultural Publishing House, he read an introduction to Marx's Capital translated by Li Hanjun, and recommended it to readers many times. When the first Congress was convened, spies broke in and left. The representatives realized that they were in danger, so they were forced to move immediately, leaving only Li Hanjun and Chen Gongbo. Not long after, the agents indeed broke in with a dozen French policemen. As a result, Li Hanjun calmly negotiated with the French policeman using his proficient French, and finally succeeded in averting the danger. Among the representatives, there is also a theoretical master, Li De. He is known as an encyclopedia of Marxism. He is a pioneer in systematically spreading Marxism in China and was the first to propose the party's united front. Li Da was born in 1890 and came from a tenant family. He was diligent and studious since he was a child. Went to Japan to study in 1913. Starting in 1918, he studied Marxist-Leninist works. Subsequently, he translated books such as Explanation of Historical Materialism, Overview of Social Problems, Marxist Economic Theory and other books, and introduced the three components of Marxism in a relatively systematic manner. In 1920, Li Da and Chen Duxiu jointly initiated the organization of the Communist Party of China and first established a communist group in Shanghai. He was responsible for editing the Communist Party and did a lot of theoretical work. Mao Zedong was also a loyal reader of Li Da. Li Da later translated the more than 850-page outline of sociology, actually the outline of Marxist philosophy, which Mao Zedong read no less than 10 times. One of the first representatives, Zhou Zhihai, was 4 years younger than Mao Zedong and had achieved outstanding results since childhood. In 1916, he was admitted to Yuanling No. 8 United Middle School with first place. In July 1917, Zhou Zhihai arrived in Tokyo, Japan. In 1920, he and Chen Duxiu formed the Shanghai Communist Group. In the same year, he returned to Japan to continue his studies and formed the Communist Group in Japan. When he was a freshman, he was elected as Deputy General Secretary. In 1922, he took the public-sponsored examination for studying abroad and passed the 4th place among more than 600 people. In the autumn of 1922, he entered Kyoto Imperial University to study economics. The first representative, Chen Gongbo, has an astonishingly high configuration. He can be said to be a young man who has achieved great success. Fate has dealt him good cards time and time again, but he may want to make it more difficult and beat the good cards to pieces time and time again. Chen Gongbo was admitted to the philosophy department of Peking University in 1917.1920, he became a professor. He established the Chinese Socialist Youth League that year. In 1920, he joined the party organization established by Chen Duxiu in Guangzhou. He was in charge of the official newspaper. He attended the first major in 1921, went to Columbia University in the United States to study for a doctoral degree in 1922, and returned to Guangdong University to teach and act as president in 1926. In 1926, he became the Secretary General of the Central Party Committee of the Kuomintang. The first representative of the Communist Party of China can be said to be a gathering of elites. Each of the representatives is talented and ambitious. At this time, Mao Zedong has no advantage at all. After that, various cheating geniuses continued to emerge in the ranks of the Communist Party. Therefore, although Mao Zedong held the original shares, his initial voice was constantly diluted, and he was always outside the core decision-making circle, and even sat on the bench. For example, Wang Ming, born in 1904, was 11 years younger than Mao Zedong. He was smart since he was a child. He went to school at the age of 6, graduated from an agricultural school at the age of 16, and went to Sun Yat-sen University in Moscow in the Soviet Union at the age of 20 for further study. He studied hard, got excellent grades, and was fluent in Russian. He is familiar with the basic principles of Marxism-Leninism and can often recite large sections of classic works and textbooks. At the same time, his fighting enthusiasm, work ability, organizational coordination ability and eloquent speech ability are also outstanding, and he has considerable appeal and followers among his classmates. He successfully won the trust and support of the Communist International, so he became the actual leader of the party at the age of 25. This is a life of cheating. Another example is Chu Kaibai, a bright and talented young man. In 1917, he was supposed to be admitted to Peking University, but he couldn't afford the tuition and living expenses, so he enrolled in the Russian Language Training Center under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The reason was that there was no tuition fee and he could learn Russian for free. In 1920, Chu Kaibai went to Moscow as a special correspondent for the Beijing Morning Post, just in time for the 10th National Congress of the Russian Communist Party. He wrote a 30,000-word-long communication to introduce all aspects of Soviet Russia to the Chinese people. In July 1921, he became the only Chinese reporter to interview Lenin. In 1922, at the 4th Congress of the Communist International, Chu Kaibai served as Chen Duxiu's translator. After returning to China in 1923, he was invited by Chen Duxiu to edit New Youth. In the same year, He published a Chinese translation of the Internationale in New Youth, which was my country's first complete translation of the Internationale's lyrics. He is also a writer with revolutionary enthusiasm. His works cover many fields such as politics, philosophy, literature, history, and translation. They have had a profound impact on history and are known as the founder of Chinese revolutionary literature. At the 5th National Congress of the Communist Party of China in May 1927, Chu Kaibai was elected to the Politburo and served as a member of the Standing Committee, a total of 3 people, the other 2 being Zhang Guohao and Cai Hezhen. Bogu is also very good. He was born in 1907, 14 years younger than Mao Zedong. At the age of 18, he was selected as the editor-in-chief of the Wuxi Review, a progressive publication for intellectuals. He became the party chief at the age of 24. Bogu studied in the Soviet Union for 4 years and became proficient in Russian. After returning to China, he translated a large number of Marxist-Leninist works. Mao Zedong requested 5 books to be read at the 7th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, 3 of which were translated by Bogu. In short, the early team of the Communist Party of China was definitely not a loser, but the elite of Chinese society at that time. They were all talented people. Mao Zedong did not cheat in the beginning. 2. There were several ups and downs, and he was once expelled from the Central Committee. After getting started, Mao Zedong did not go very smoothly, and there were often stagnations. As others held bigger and bigger positions in the party, he became smaller and smaller, and he was even expelled from the Central Committee. The 5 members of the Second Central Executive Committee in 1922 were Chen Duxiu, Zhang Guohao, Organizational Work, Cai Hezhen, Propaganda Work, Gao Junyu, and Deng Zongxia. The Third National Congress of the Communist Party of China elected the Central Bureau, which was composed of 5 people, Chen Duxiu, Cai Hezhen, Mao Zedong, Luo Zhanlong, and Tan Pingshan, later changed to Wang Hebo due to Tan's transfer. Mao Zedong was fortunate enough to be elected as a 9-member Central Committee member. At the 4th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, a new Central Executive Committee was elected, consisting of 9 people and 5 alternate members. Unfortunately, Mao Zedong lost the election and there were no alternates. Chen Duxiu, Pen Shizhi, Zhang Guohao, Cai Hezhen, and Chu Kaibai formed the Central Bureau. However, what you lose is what you gain. Mao Zedong was very popular in the Kuomintang. At the first meeting of the Kuomintang, he was elected as a member of the Charter Review Committee and an alternate member of the Central Executive Committee of the Kuomintang, nominated by Sun Yat-sen himself. Mao Zedong spoke at the conference many times and helped Sun Yat-sen reorganize the Kuomintang. At this time, Chiang Kai-shek was not even a representative of the Kuomintang. He was only allowed to attend the meeting without the right to speak, let alone the right to be nominated. In this way, Mao Zedong served in the Central Committee of the Kuomintang for 3 years, with a higher position and status than Chiang Kai-shek. During this period, Mao Zedong was also elected as the acting propaganda minister of the Kuomintang, recommended by Wang Jinghui, and also helped the Kuomintang establish the largest provincial branch, the Hunan branch. However, fruit fans should not be disappointed. Chiang Kai-shek flourished in the Communist International. At the 6th Enlarged Conference of the Communist International in 1926, he was elected as an honorary member of the Standing Committee of the Central Executive Committee of the Communist International. Don't be surprised. During the first cooperation between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party members were allowed to join the Kuomintang in their individual capacity. Tan Pingshan and Li Dazhao are both members of the Central Executive Committee of the Kuomintang, and Zhang Guohao and Chu Kaibai are alternate members of the Central Executive Committee of the Kuomintang. Mao Zedong's salary at that time was 120 yuan per month, which was 15 times that of a librarian. However, in the end, the Kuomintang still failed to retain Runzi. What does this mean? This once again illustrates a lesson learned in blood and tears: migrant workers cannot be owed wages. Just kidding, Mao Zedong left not because of salary arrears, but because the Kuomintang purged the party in April 1927. Mao Zedong resolutely chose to quit the Kuomintang. This fully reflects Mao Zedong's ambition, not for high-ranking officials and rich salaries, but sincerely to save the country and the people. He has long seen through the centuries-old rotten party. At this time, Mao Zedong's status within the party was not high. The 5th National Congress at the end of April 1927 elected 33 members of the Central Committee, and Mao Zedong was only one of 14 alternate members. At the subsequent first plenary session of the Fifth Central Committee, members of the Political Bureau, 7 people, and alternate members, 3 people, were elected, and Mao Zedong was not among them. Among them, the standing committee members are Chen Duxiu, Zhang Qiuhao, and Cai Hezhen, 3 people. After finally becoming an alternate member of the Central Committee, I was qualified to participate in the August 7th meeting, and had the opportunity to propose the idea of power comes from the barrel of a gun. As a result, not long after, November 1927, his qualification as an alternate member was revoked, and he was dismissed from his position as a member of the Hunan Provincial Party Committee. The reason is that after the autumn harvest uprising, he decisively changed the central government's original plan to attack Changsha based on the objective situation that the enemy was strong and we were weak, led the troops to march into the countryside, and opened up the revolutionary pattern of Jinggangshan. This feat of creating a new path for the Chinese Revolution not only failed to receive the recognition and support it deserved, but was criticized by the Central Committee chaired by Chu Kaibai. There were mistakes when the bad news was conveyed. When it reached Jinggangshan, it was mistakenly reported as being expelled from the party. He became a non-party person for a time and could not serve as the former secretary of the party committee or the party representative. Advertise. 3. At the beginning of the founding of the army, Mao Zedong was not a military genius. Starting from the Nanchang Uprising and the Autumn Harvest Uprising, China entered the period of agrarian revolution and began the 10-year confrontation between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party. Mao Zedong's situation was also full of dangers. Why I say this is because he has been squeezed out of political leadership until the Zunyi Conference, when he entered the core decision-making circle, and military command has also been sidelined several times. For example, in terms of military affairs, I think Mao Zedong was one of the few military strategists in Chinese history. However, such a military strategist did not cheat from the beginning. For example, before the Autumn Harvest Uprising, he had never led an army, let alone fought a war. He used to be a primary school teacher, and at most he had worked in trade unions and peasant movements. Although he was 34 years old at this time, he had no military experience. Before this, Mao Zedong had never systematically studied military literature, nor had he systematically studied in military academies. So until the Zunyi Conference in 1935, some people still pointed at his nose and teased him. At that time, Kaifeng asked Mao Zedong in front of everyone, to the effect, not the original words, "What do you know, Marxism-Leninism? Don't think that just because you have read The Art of War and The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you can point your fingers. Your methods of fighting are not very clever." Unexpectedly, Mao Zedong replied leisurely, "What you said is only right. I have only read The Romance of the Three Kingdoms and I have never read The Art of War." In fact, this questioning was quite irritating to Mao Zedong. When he arrived in Yan'an after the long march, Mao Zedong was still thinking about this scene. However, this place was a poor mountain ravine and there were no bookstores at all. So he wrote to Ye Jianying and Lu Ding in Xi'an and asked them to buy a batch of military books and send them to them. After Ye Jianying and Lu Ding received the letter, they immediately bought a bunch of military books and tried every means to deliver them to Yan'an. Mao Zedong flipped through it and was very dissatisfied because the books they bought were all about military technical details. Mao Zedong is no longer worthy of a gun. Of course he will not be interested if you show him the firearms operation manual. Mao Zedong then wrote another letter, specifically emphasizing not to buy ordinary tactics books, but only to buy strategy books, large core operations, campaign science, etc. Finally, I specially emphasize that if you don't have it, you can also buy some of Sun Tzu's Art of War. I wrote this paragraph to explain that the chairman did not systematically study the art of war before he founded the army. Moreover, at the beginning of the founding of the army, Mao Zedong was not an outstanding military commander. In April 1928, Zhu De led the remnants of the Nanchang Uprising to Jinggangshan. The people in Jinggangshan were happy. Some people said excitedly, "Finally, someone who knows how to fight has arrived." After all, Zhu De had a serious military background. He was admitted to the Yunnan Army Lecture Hall in 1909, participated in Yunnan's Xinhai Revolutionary Armed Uprising in 1911, participated in the anti-UN struggle in 1915, and became a brigade commander in 1917. In the spring of 1921, Zhu De served as commander of the Yunnan Army Gendarmerie Headquarters, director of the Yunnan Provincial Police Department and director of the Provincial Capital Police Department. In 1922, he went to Germany to study, and in 1925, he went to the Soviet Union to study military affairs. Moreover, the remaining 800 people from the Nanjang uprising he brought were all members of the Yeting Independent Regiment. They were full of talents, including 19 Huangpu students. They had rich practical experience, excellent military and political qualities, and extremely strong overall combat effectiveness. The situation of the autumn harvest rebels was worse. During the autumn harvest uprising, Mao Zedong pulled together a team of 4,000 people, but their mission was to attack Changsha, the provincial capital. Less than 2 months later, Commander-in-Chief Liu Deming died. Division Commander Yu Seidu took the lead in becoming a deserter. Deputy Commander-in-Chief Han Jun was a military expert and a graduate of the first class of Huangpu. However, he was ambushed and captured by a local militia, and then surrendered completely. The Kuomintang. The rebel army had a division of 4,000 people. It was initially organized into 4 regiments. The commander of the 4th Regiment, Chiu Kuoksuan, rebelled before the battle. He also ambushed the most elite 1st Regiment of the rebel army. After plundering the regiment's baggage, he fled and defected. Zhang Jun, the leader of the 1st Regiment, Zhong Wenshang, disappeared. The leader of the 2nd Regiment, Wang Yaxin, was missing after attacking Liu Yang. The leader of the 3rd Regiment, Su Xianjun, was greedy for comfort and was unwilling to go to Jinggangshan to fight guerrillas, so he quietly left the team on the way. The rebel army just lost its commander-in-chief and deputy commander-in-chief, as well as its 4 regiment commanders. Therefore, it is a miracle that such an army has not been dispersed. Attacking Changsha is simply a fantasy. In October 1927, Mao Zedong reorganized the troops in San Juan into a regiment with 1 and 3 battalions, each with 3 companies. In addition, there was a separate special agent company with a total of about 700 people and 5 more than 100 guns. After the reorganization, the leader of the 1st Regiment, and the only regiment, was named Chen Hao, born in the 1st phase of Huangpu, the regiment deputy Su Nu, born in the 4th phase of Huangpu, the regiment chief of staff Han Zhuangjian, the commander of the 1st Battalion Huangziji, born in the 4th phase of Huangpu, the 3rd Battalion Zhang Ziking. This San Juan reorganization was a pioneering work and established the principle of the party commanding the gun. From then on, no traitor could organically pull away the troops. Among them, when Zhang Qiuhao rebelled, even the guards could not pull him away. For example, in November 1927, the regiment leader Chen Hao, together with the regiment deputy, regiment chief of staff, and 1st Battalion commander, prepared to lead the 1st Battalion to surrender to the enemy. However, they were discovered by party representatives and notified Mao Zedong. You see how dangerous it is. There is only 1 regiment left in the autumn harvest uprising that is not full, the 2nd Battalion is missing. The regiment leader also wants to remove the 1st Battalion. Thanks to the reorganization of San Juan, the party representative of the 1st Battalion urgently notified Mao Zedong after discovering the situation. Mao Zedong led a company to catch up with the troops through the night, and took control of Chen Hao and others, and pulled the troops back. Why can the army be brought back? Because most of the backbone of the army are communists, and many people are deceived. After joining forces in Jinggangshan, the 2 armies were reorganized into the 4th Army of the Workers' and Peasants' Revolutionary Army, with Zhu De as commander, Mao Zedong as party representative, Chen Yi as director of the political department, and the 3 of them concurrently served as division commanders. This was also Mao Zedong's first time as a division commander, and he was very excited. He slung a shell gun on his waist and said to Zhu De, "Put the shell gun on your back. The division commander will meet the army commander." Then nothing happened. After that, he handed the shell gun to the guard and basically never touched the gun from then on. During the long march, he was given a gun. After the Wuki Town rendezvous, he gave the gun and bullets to Wuki Town guerrilla leader Zhang Mink. However, this three-nosed elementary school teacher who had never seen the art of war, never attended a military academy, and barely touched a gun soon became a unique military strategist in history. His trick is to look beyond war to see war, and to look beyond military affairs. He studies strategic issues from a philosophical perspective and closely links war with politics, economy, and organization. For example, in 1929 he proposed that the Red Army, unlike the White Army, was not just for fighting. Our Red Army was an armed group that carried out revolutionary political tasks and was also responsible for mobilizing the masses and building base areas. This defined the nature of the Red Army, and all Red Army soldiers knew who they were fighting for. The Red Army participated in the construction of the base area, which strengthened military-civilian ties and gave the Red Army a solid rear area. Because he stands at a high level and has an overview of the overall situation, he can always understand the essence of the problem, grasp the key to resolving conflicts, and liberate himself from the details. For example, when there was a huge disparity in strength, he discovered that the Red Army's life and death line was not its territory, but the preservation of its vitality. Fighting head-on with the enemy was a dead end. To put it simply, if you save the land and lose the people, you will lose both the people and the land. People and land are saved, and people and land are saved. Another of his tricks was to learn war from war. In every battle, cotters at all levels must hold a summary meeting to analyze where the battle was won, where the battle was lost, what should be paid attention to in the future, etc. Therefore, every time there was a war, Mao Zedong and Zhuge led the troops together and would personally go to the front line to command. Whether it is the choice of strategic direction or the formation of troops for a battle, he must personally participate. Advertise. 5. Self-discipline and develop leadership qualities. In the cruel struggle environment, Mao Zedong was tempered and became the god of war step by step. At the same time, his leadership talent also grew, and finally matched his talent with leadership. Mao Zedong was often in the minority before the Zunyi Conference in 1935. This is because his vision and pattern must be more macroscopic and his thinking must be deeper. However, the greater the ability, the greater the temper. Sometimes there will be problems in communication with comrades, and the words will not be merciful to others, so it is easy to become a minority. For example, in June 1928, when the Hunan Provincial Party Committee ordered an attack on Hunan, Mao Zedong firmly opposed it and his attitude was extremely tough. But the facts proved that his judgment was correct, because the Red Army suffered a big loss. This is known as the August failure. In preparation for the 7th Congress of the 4th Red Army in June 1929, Mao Zedong and Zhuge had a disagreement. Mao Zedong demanded that the party be in charge of everything and that everything should be governed by politics. But Zhuge believes that soldiers should also have a say. The two couldn't argue, and Mao Zedong resigned from his position as secretary of the General Front Committee of the 4th Red Army. Chen Yi came out to persuade peace, but in the end he labeled Chen Yi as a Chen Yiism, offending the centrists as well. After the Soviet faction entered Rujin, Mao Zedong's life became even more difficult. On the one hand, the faction staying in the Soviet Union attacked the local faction in the country and established unquestionable authority. On the other hand, Mao Zedong was difficult to get along with. He attacked the faction staying in the Soviet Union and showed no mercy. He was dismissed from his position as the General Political Commissar of the Red Army and was assigned to the rear as a government chairman without real power. He could only do research. However, during the Long March, Mao Zedong suddenly grew up. Especially after the Battle of Xianjiang, the Red Army dropped sharply from 86,000 to more than 30,000, and Mao Zedong was extremely worried. But this time he was mature, and he calmly suggested to the central government to find a place to hold another meeting to discuss the next step. So his suggestion was adopted. The chosen place was Zunyi. At the Zunyi conference, there was initially a strong smell of gunpowder. Bogu's army was too cunning. Zhou Enlai implicitly criticized Bogu's leadership, and Jiang Wenqin directly criticized Bogu. In the end, Mao Zedong became calm and talked for a full hour. The main content is to unite everyone, including Bogu, and the target is directly the military leader Lida, German. The general atmosphere is that the comrades who stayed in the Soviet Union and the comrades at home are all good comrades, and there are no big problems with the previous revolutionary methods. Major failures were entirely caused by military command, Lida. As long as we change the way of military command, we will be fine. In this case, even Bogu would accept it. As a result, the military command rights of Bogu and Lida were removed, and Mao Zedong became a member of the Standing Committee and became Zhou Enlai's military assistant. The fourth crossing of Kishui was Mao Zedong's proud work, but after the second crossing of Kishui, the old problem arose. Facing Lin Biao's battle plan, Mao Zedong became a minority again. Everyone supported Lin Biao's plan, attacking Daegu Field. He was the only one who firmly opposed it. Although Mao Zedong patiently persuaded him, it still had no effect and could not be persuaded. Later Jiang Wenqin said, "Let's vote." If there was a real vote, Mao Zedong would definitely lose, so he was anxious and decided to give up his choice in anger. At night, although Mao Zedong was anxious, he still calmed down. He had a long talk with Zhou Enlai all night and persuaded Zhou Enlai. Zhou Enlai used his own expertise to convince other comrades and finally gave up Lin Biao's battle plan. This led to the later 3 crossings of Kishui and the 4th crossing of Kishui. This time, Mao Zedong united with Zhou Enlai and then united most of the comrades. From then on, whenever something happened, Mao Zedong would gather everyone together, calmly persuade and explain, and patiently strive to unite most of the comrades. Later, for example, after joining forces with Zhang Qiuhao, the powerful Zhang Qiuhao was so aggressive that he prepared to raise an army to prosecute, and even convened a general meeting to completely liquidate the Soviet faction. Boku and others were trembling. Although Mao Zedong was also ostracized by those who stayed in the Soviet Union, for the sake of the overall situation, he stood up and said that the failure was a military issue, not a political issue, and had nothing to do with the comrades who stayed in the Soviet Union. Now that the military mistakes have been resolved, there is no need to talk about anything else. In the end, Mao Zedong crushed Zhang Qiuhao's separatist behavior by uniting most of his comrades. The majority of those who stayed in the Soviet Union eventually became staunch supporters of Mao Zedong. After the founding of New China, Mao Zedong also became a minority on the issue of sending troops to North Korea. However, Mao Zedong held consecutive meetings and persuaded everyone with earnest words. In the end, everyone accepted his opinion and fully supported the war against US aggression and aid Korea. From the chairman's experience, we can see that there is no cheating in life. The chairman simply devoted all his energy and talent to the cause of people's liberation, and finally achieved cheating achievements. China had Mao Zedong, so the spirit of the Chinese nation could be reshaped. Although he has been away for 44 years, his spiritual wealth is still an invincible magic weapon for our nation. Salute again.